Привет, YouTube! Меня зовут LA Prepper. Сегодня утром мы будем говорить о новостях из России. Да, мне нравится. Мне очень нравится. All right. Good morning. This is LA Prepper, and we are going to look at some Russian news. What are the Ruskies talking about? In case you're wondering, I was explaining this to one of my classmates the other day. Why would I want to look at Russian news? Well, I like to get multiple takes on things, and there's almost no easier way to find an anti-Western opinion than to ask Russia what they think. Now, Russia is actually a fairly Western country. I mean, they have a mostly capitalist economy. They kind of have a democracy. They do vote for people. Kind of been bouncing forth between Putin and Medvedev as of late, but I'm not really going to comment much further on that. Um, but you know, I like to get their take on what's going on because I look at the Western news and I see all the Western bias, and then I look at the non-Western countries and look at a lot of their bias, and then I kind of put two and two together and see where I end up. Um, you could look at Al Jazeera and get like the Middle Eastern take. You could look at, even though Al Jazeera I think is owned by like the BBC or something, but you could look at, Chinese news or, like stuff like that. But RT, I've been kind of following RT. They have a lot of English focused content. I suppose you could say, RT is a massive psyop to get Americans to think more anti-West about their country. I suppose you could argue that, but I think they're just putting it in English so that anyone in the world can read it. English as sort of the national global language. Anyways, their main headline here: Trump to decertify nuclear agreement with Iran, according to Tillerson. Yes, well, Trump's effort to sort of unagree to, I guess, what we agreed to with Iran has been in the news as of late. I'm not a specialist in foreign politics or in nuclear power or in military strategy, so I'm going to leave that to my commander in chief and um, to the professionals that he's working with. I know Trump is in favor of a strong military, but I don't think he's a maniacal warmonger. Even with what he said with North Korea and talking about possible military options, I don't doubt that Trump is willing to pull the trigger, but I also don't see him as the guy that's, you know, jumping at the bit, jumping at the bit or whatever to get into something. Trump is not a fool. He understands that, you know, I'm fairly confident that Trump understands. He's lived through Vietnam. I believe he had a medical deferment and maybe a college deferment or something. But look, who wants to go fight in Vietnam? If you're a military veteran, I appreciate your service, but I think we can kind of agree that putting your life on the line to die for your country, as noble and as patriotic as that is, it's something that the majority of Americans aren't willing to do, which is why most Americans don't enlist in the military. That and some other reasons. And, of course, I'm not anti military, but the point is, I don't necessarily think it's very fair to say, well, Trump is a coward or Trump is this because he wasn't interested in going to Vietnam. So I'll just leave it at that. What else do we have? Yeah, we've been kind of disagreeing with Turkey. No problem in buying Russian S-400s, Erdogan says, hints at S-500s. So Russia is trying to sell Turkey weapons. Now, why would they do that? Is because they think we are going to go to war with Turkey? No. The bottom line is this mutual assured destruction is something that countries have used for a long time, for decades and decades, even before the nuclear weapons. I mean, that was nuclear weapons is sort of the classic mutually assured destruction, but before that, it was sort of mutually assured violence. If you start war against me, I will come at you, and there will be a lot of death. So, that's kind of how countries, dealt with each other historically. Um, Countries that weren't able to defend themselves were at risk of getting taken over, and those that were able to defend themselves um, tended to have less conflict. So it's not really a surprise. I don't think you really need to look into, why is Turkey buying missiles or why do they want missiles? They want to defend themselves against whatever's going on around them. The Middle East is kind of crazy right now for a lot of different reasons. So there's that. U.S. stance on nuclear deal will lead to global chaos, says Iranian parliament speaker. And do I agree with him? No. But you have to, sometimes the news is about understanding why people have opinions like that. So here we have a Russian website talking about how the U.S. action is going to turn things chaotic, and this is quoted from an Iranian parliament speaker. Now, how often do you think an American website is going to quote an Iranian parliament speaker? Probably never. Um, in fact, I would be curious to do a search on Google News. Let's try Iranian. What was it? Party speaker? No, Iranian parliament speaker. Chaos. Oh, actually, U.S. News World and Report. Well, nuclear deal will collapse. So we have RT covering this. We have Fars News Agency, which is in Iran. Farsi is the language a lot of Persians speak. We have the Straits Times. I don't know who that is, but U.S. News World and Report. So we do have a few U.S. companies, but you can see that it's not, Washington Post and, Wall Street Journal. I mean, it's not, um, they're not really trying to touch this. Bitcoin now bigger than Bayer, Goldman Sachs, and Nike. How freaking crazy is that? That is crazy. I was just talking with some classmates about Bitcoin last night, and I remember, back in 2008, meeting people at like investors meetings. I was into real estate investing and stuff back then a little more. I met people all about Bitcoin, and it was a lot cheaper back then. I should have just bought one for the hell of it. Shit, it would be worth $5,000. Imagine if we all would have bought one Bitcoin 8 years ago. I mean, sometimes you just got to look at stuff and be like, is this worth a $10 gamble? And if you held on to it long enough, it would have, you would have figured out it was worth it. But then you probably would have sold it for 100 or $200 and saying, shit, I'm going to get out, never realizing that, it was going to go up to 5,000. It's just crazy. Crazy. World must act or risk post antibiotic apocalypse. Now, isn't that an interesting choice of words? Apocalypse. So I think what this doctor is probably saying is that we're using so much antibiotics right now that if we ever stop having antibiotics, that all these bugs that we've been killing are just going to go apeshit. And I'm kind of talking out of my ass because I haven't really read the article, but let's just take a quick look and see what he's talking about. So what's interesting is that I don't, even though she says this doctor is talking about apocalypse, I don't think she means like when WROL hits. I think when she says post antibiotic apocalypse, she's sort of saying when antibiotics stop working and everything becomes resistant, yeah, that it would cause a lot of deaths. So this doctor is basically saying we need to stop using antibiotics until they're absolutely, absolutely necessary, um, because otherwise, if people start getting resistant to all these drugs, the bugs are just going to get worse and worse. So, that's really interesting. I don't doubt that's true. Oh, now we're staying in the nuclear deal. What? So, in 10 minutes, we went from we're out of the deal to we're staying in the deal? What is this shit? Tillerson, make up your goddamn mind. So, we're going to decertify. Get this. This is why I can't be a politician, because I could never come up with something as clever as this. We're going to decertify the nuclear pact, but that doesn't mean that we're withdrawing from the accord. We're going to lay out a more confrontational approach. Well, that sounds exciting. In case you want to look up what pact we have with Iran, we have a joint comprehensive plan of action. And under this agreement, we have to certify Iran's compliance with the pact every 90 days. Man. Look, I don't know how you feel about Iran. America has sort of classically had a very complicated relationship with Iran. They're not the best player in the region, but we've sort of tried to work with them here and there because the enemy of my enemy is my friend, so the saying goes. So yeah, stuff going on in Iran. Look into it if you're interested. Alcohol-free vegetarian apartment complex springs up in St. Petersburg. That's really cool because alcoholism is a huge problem in Russia. Not to be stereotypical or anything, but seriously, alcoholism and depression and suicide and the male Russian population is really struggling as of late to really find themselves, to find purpose. It's difficult to kind of get ahead in Russia. You can get a job and you can work and you can do stuff, but you got to be really smart or really talented or have something kind of really good going for you, because otherwise life can be tough over there. It's not like it was in the old days. There's plenty of opportunity, but for a lot of different reasons it's challenging. We've got a Ukrainian inventor making a Mad Max style tractor. That's cool. Nuclear sub arrives in southern Korean port. Yeah, that's not an accident. Um, the German foreign minister enter immediate danger of war if U.S. quits Iran nuclear deal. Well, I'm not sure when we started listening to Germany about military advice. Um, and look, World War II was a long time ago, but this is. I'm going to say something about Germany real quick. Germany is trying to become to Europe what America is to the world. Germany is trying to be the big dog. They're trying to run the European Union. The Bundesbank has got tons of money. Merkel is throwing around her weight in the EU as much as she can, which is part of the reason Brexit wanted to get out. It wasn't just this or that. It was that the EU was trying to tell Brexit and trying to tell all these other countries, what to do. The IMF and all these other, globalist organizations, when Greece was having trouble, they were telling Greece, look, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And people were rioting in the streets because they were saying, what the hell? You're not even Greek. Why are we letting these other people tell Greek people what to do? Now, granted, they were loaning Greece money and Greece is going bankrupt, and Greece kind of pulled to Venezuela, where they just had a lot of social services and their economy went to shit. And look, I'm not saying you can't try to take care of people, but sometimes you gotta break something down before you can build something new up. So yeah, I'm not really giving two shits about what the German foreign minister is saying. Go run the EU. They got plenty of stuff to do trying to run the EU. If anything, they're trying to keep Iran cool and calm because they're a lot closer to the fallout than we are. If America launches some NATO strike from Belgium, Iran's not going to care that we came from Belgium. They're going to care that, well, I mean, they're not going to care it's Belgium. They're going to care that that's where we launched our strike or whatever from. So I can understand that they don't want Iran being pissed because they're a lot closer to Iran than we are, but not too worried about what the German FM is talking about for global policy, our global military policy. If it was up to the Germans and the EU, America would just join the EU. I mean, that's what they want. They want everything to be under one big, all seeing, all powerful entity. But Trump ain't going to have it. Thank God for that. Thank God for President Trump. He's not perfect. He's not the best man in the world. But I will tell you this about President Trump. I think he genuinely loves this country. I think he really does. I don't think he wants to make this country weak. I think he wants to make this country strong. And I don't think Obama felt that way. I think Obama was willing to sacrifice the future of this country for his own personal gain. And that kind of makes him a piece of shit for that. And I voted for him too, to be honest. Because my eyes haven't always been open. And I thought being progressive at one point in my life was the way to fix the world. And I was wrong. But that's okay. I finally woke up, and let me tell you, if Trump hadn't woken me up, and the internet and all these people on YouTube talking about the economy and conspiracy theories, not that it got me to be a conspiracy nut, which I'm not, but it opened up my eyes into being skeptical about what the powers that be, how they kind of feel about us and how they feel about, running our lives. I mean, when you have these politicians talking about, I want to ban all guns and I want to put these magazine release things on guns and I want to stop silencers and bump stocks. Yet, the Clintons walk around with the Secret Service for the rest of their life. The rest of their life. Now, look, I'm not against a president and his family necessarily having some sort of protection, but when you have armed people protecting you and your children basically forever, and you're trying to tell the American people who's paying for you to have armed protection that we need limits on the firearms that we own, you're a hypocrite. You're a lot worse things, but I'm not going to call the president's family anything, I'm not going to say too much more about that. I mean, but you're just a huge hypocrite if you're saying, well, it's okay for me to be protected, but you can't protect yourself. It's just like saying F you. No, I'm going to be safe. My family will be safe because I served my country, because I'm special. Now, if you're the president or the president's family, sure, you did serve your country a little bit. And thank you for your service for the public good, if you work towards a public good. But if you're trying to tell me that the states and the federal government should make laws contrary to the Constitution and the ideals that our country was founded on, I don't think that's very American of you. I really don't. That's why I did things like buy my new High Point C9, because I want to exercise my right before my rights are taken away. So there you have it, YouTube. Kind of a quick review on the news and what I think about some things going on in the world. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.